Reverend, this is the richest our country has ever been. Like right now. Why is it that young people can't afford a place to live? People can't afford rent. They can't afford their utilities. They can't afford their health care. This administration has taken health care away from poor people to give a big giant tax cut to the wealthiest Americans, to billionaires and millionaires. That has to be fixed because this is unsustainable. Can I tell you how we're going to fix it?
Please.
So, I mean, it's tax policy, right? I mean, the president gave a big tax cut for billionaires. He partially paid for it by taking away health care and SNAP benefits from poor people. And we've got to reverse that. So I have legislation to provide a tax cut so somebody making $40,000 a year, as you talked about, will not pay any federal income taxes. And people that make more than that, all the way up to like 6 figures, will pay a lot less. And it's not going to cost anything, because here's what we're going to do. We're going to raise the taxes on people that make more than $1 million a year. They can afford to pay more.
It feels like AI is out of control. It's moving faster than anyone can control. And that has a lot of Americans and a lot of people in our communities that our delegates here represent very nervous. How do you advocate that we can shape AI better to not lose control of it?
Well, I mean, if there's anything that keeps me up at night, it's this. Like, where's this technology going? And how is it going to affect work? How's it going to affect people's jobs? And it's moving much faster than any other change has ever happened in our workforce when you consider the Industrial Revolution and other times we've seen rapid change, the internet. This is moving faster. So what we have to do is we have to make this about workers. And we have to make sure there is opportunity for people to get retrained. Now, there are some upsides to this technology. And by the way, I don't think we're stopping it. So we have to be able to shape it, like you say. We have to be able to shape the technology to help working people. One of the things we can do is have a robust training program like unions, like union training programs, to retrain people for the jobs of the future. So I've got a plan called AI for America, which is a roadmap on how do we address this. It's got a bunch of principles and a bunch of things we're going to try to do here through legislation. Some of it we've already started. At the center of this are a few basic principles. One is that the AI companies that create the large language models, those AI companies and the data center companies and the companies that are going to benefit from this technology, they're going to have to contribute money, resources, to help with the job training and building the infrastructure, and also some form of enhanced unemployment insurance to help bridge the gap when somebody's got to go from a job that has been replaced to a new job. Then we got to deal with all the safety issues. So this is moving very, very fast. What I don't want to see happen is what happened with social media. I mean, social media has not been good for our country. I think we could all admit that. We got to get ahead of this, and it has to be focused on workers.
I have to ask you this. You've covered DEI. You've talked about the tax unfairness. You talked about Iran. Let me ask you about the question of moral leadership. We have historically, in every community, raised our kids to stay out of trouble and to live wholesome lives. We have now elected a man with 34 felony convictions and guilty of sexual harassment by the courts. This is not politics. And that openly uses profanity on holy holidays, and that has said by his own admission that he doesn't think he's going to heaven. About the only thing he said that.
Do we all agree?
I think that's the only thing he and I agree on. That I don't think so. I can't put him in hell, but I don't think he's going to make heaven. How do you envision setting a new sense of morality, not religion, not sectarian, but a new moral tone to the American body politic as we practice it?
Well, I mean, the big worry that I have is if you're like a teenager today or even somebody in your early 20s, you've been watching this example of leadership, horrible example of leadership, for basically your whole life. Because kids under the age of like 10, they don't pay attention to this. But somebody between 10 and 20, right now, this has been the president that you will remember. And this is the example. And I'll tell you what, after my 25 years in the Navy, I cannot think of a military officer or an enlisted person in leadership that I've ever worked with that has such poor leadership qualities as the President of the United States. So, and I still can't figure out, and he was elected, you know, he was elected in 2024, but I still struggle with the fact that our country today elected somebody who has 34 felonies. And that we re-elected, essentially, re-elected Donald Trump. And so, I mean, what do we do now? I expect when we have a Democrat in the White House here on January 20th of 2029, it's going to be somebody with a moral and ethical compass.
Last question. Do you think about trying to be that person?
Well, so we got the election in November. I'm from Arizona, remember? Arizona. You know what's happening in Arizona right now? Kash Patel, head of the FBI, is coming for our voter data from the recount from 2020, because this president still can't accept that he lost the election in 2020. They're going down to Fulton County, Georgia. They're grabbing those ballots because he wants to be able to take this stuff and then somehow falsely, accuse, again, that election from being stolen. It was not stolen from him. There were hundreds of court cases, right? So he's trying to set he's going to try to convince people that our election system is unsafe and that people are voting that shouldn't vote. That is just not true. So I'm very concerned about us getting through this election in November. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Democrats win up and down the ballot, both House and Senate. And then, Reverend, to answer your question, once we get past that, Gabby and I will make a decision about what I'm going to do next.
All right. Arizona Governor, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. Give him a hand.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Everything's good. Thank you. Come on. All right. Come on, give him another hand. I'm getting ready to bring on our next person. Let me bring on now another person that has entertained the national stage, and many have said from his home state that they really see great potential in him. And he changed his family outing to be with us today. And you that are watching live stream, all of you that are here as delegates, welcome to the stage. He's a leader who made his mission to find common ground in divided times. He's the 63rd governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. He's proven that effective governance isn't about moving right or left, it's about moving forward. Welcome to our stage, the governor of Kentucky, Governor Andy Beshear. I think our Louisville chapters make a lot of noise for you. Governor, thank you for coming, and I know you rearranged things to come, and we appreciate that. Let me start by asking you, give a little of your background. I remember that you and I were on Morning Joe one morning, and I told you that I heard from a member of our national board, Reverend Malone, some good things about you. Reverend Malone, for you in the other cities, is a member of our national board, pastors Canaan Church in Louisville. And he said, like our chapter leader here saying, he knew Governor Beshear. Tell us a little about your background, because I was amazed with some of the things you told me, your dad and all.
Yeah, first of all, it is an honor to sit on this stage with you. Hearing your speech, thank God the United States of America has you right now with everything we're going through. And so I consider this invitation an honor. I am the grandson and great-grandson of lay Baptist ministers from Western Kentucky. I've seen a picture of my great-granddad baptizing people in rivers and streams, and so we are a family of deep faith. I was raised to believe in that golden rule that says, I love my neighbor as myself, and the parable of the Good Samaritan that says that everyone is my neighbor. And so my faith informs me in everything that I do. I think about that parable, the Good Samaritan, that my grandfather preached all the time. And those were two people that looked different, thought different, prayed different, voted different. That one person laying on the side of the road in the ditch, everybody that looked like him and thought like him walked right past him. But Jesus chose someone that should have hated him, should have turned his back on him, to go over, to pick him up, to carry him to safety, and oh, by the way, to pay his health care going forward. And so that background, the way that I was raised, and then seeing my dad in public service. He served as Attorney General. He was Lieutenant Governor. He was Governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and he had the distinction of being able to put the Affordable Care Act into law in Kentucky. We saw 600,000 people get health care coverage that had never had it. We expanded Medicaid in a way that when I became governor and the pandemic hit, we had enough beds because of the Affordable Care Act and expanded Medicaid. And so I've been blessed to have leaders like Pastor Malone invested, calling me, offering advice, having faith leaders embraced, because that's where I come from. And so it's, again, an honor to be here today and to share this stage with you.
All right. Let's start with how you view what's going on a global basis. Iran. We don't know clearly from the sitting president why we're there, how we get out, what is victory, what is not. Give us your view on this engagement that we're in and what should be done about it.
This is the first president in my lifetime that has taken our country to war. And remember, he called it a war in the very first press conference. He can't back off it now. The thing about Donald Trump is he will tell you what he's thinking at all times. But he took us to war without clear justification to the American people or to Congress. And then that justification changed 3 or 4 times in the first couple days. He obviously took us into war without a plan of what winning looks like. If his idea was regime change, he didn't know the difference between Venezuela and Iran, which means he shouldn't be president of the United States. He took us to war without looking at what would happen when the strait was closed and the impact that it would have on the American people. He went to war after promising the American people he wouldn't go into new wars, and has had more conflicts than, again, any president in my lifetime. So where we are right now is we have to get that strait open. Gas costs too much for the people of the United States. Costs were already too high. Paying that plus the mortgage plus the utility bill is simply too much for most Americans. We've got to make sure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon, and we need to make sure that their ballistic missile system has been destroyed. I think that we are on our way to a couple of those. But again, with this guy changing what he views as a win or a loss and how he somehow defines regime change, as going from a guy to his son, who is probably more radicalized now than ever before, is something.
Come to domestically, you know we're a civil rights organization. This whole fight around diversity, equity, and inclusion that Donald Trump has labeled in distorted ways, and then some that have been in position has not practiced it themselves. Even some in liberal states, liberal cities, that call themselves progressive, but progressive for who? If we can't get the contracts in the black community, brown community, we can't get the jobs. They are really using a title to hand from one generation of exclusion to another. Explain to me how you would stand on DEI and how you deal with diversity as governor of Kentucky today.
It's amazing that we have a president in Donald Trump that claims that racism doesn't exist while he shows us what it looks like every single day. I've been proud as governor to veto every anti-DEI bill that's come across my desk, and I've done it in a Trump plus 31 state. When I look at the way I govern, I believe that diversity is a strength and never a weakness, that we are better off having more voices at the table. And listen, I recognize that I will never be able to feel the pain of racism. I'll never be able to bear the scars of a history of slavery and Jim Crow, redlining, all of those difficulties that have been thrust on so many Americans. But I can listen, and I can try to hear. I can make sure I'm surrounded by leaders who have felt what it feels like, and then we can work to find those solutions together. In Kentucky, we have been intentional. We've been intentional at making sure that jobs come to areas that haven't seen enough jobs. West Louisville is our largest African-American community. We have now landed about 1,000 new jobs in that community in the last 6 years, and we recently built the first hospital in that community in 150 years. In its first year, it saw 60,000 patients. 60,000 people didn't have to go 40 minutes or take 2 buses. They were able to see a doctor in their own backyards. Kids were going to be healthier. Seniors were going to be healthier. It's the only pharmacy in a number of different blocks. What we've tried to do with some of the new businesses we've landed is incentivize hiring folks from the 8 neighborhoods around to make sure that people aren't just driving into our African American communities, but that people are being hired from within them. Then the last thing I'd say is we try to create good jobs for everybody, knowing that lifts everyone up. Since I've become governor, we've had the first, second, third, and fifth best years for economic development, and our average wage for a new job last year was $30 an hour in Kentucky.
What about black businesses? Because one of the problems I have, we need jobs, but we also need to be able to be entrepreneurs. And one of the things that I find when I talk about progressives is that some of the most progressive unions in the country don't invest with blacks, their pension funds. So the fact is, Governor, There's a union in New York, big liberal New York, that over 72% of their members are black and brown. I went in a couple of years ago to ask them Melanie, can we talk to your pension fund board? Because none of our major investors in the black community was investing any of the money. They said, well, we'll try to work it out. Found out the pension board of this union, Progressive, 72% black and brown, pension board all white. And they were loaning money to developers. So, in effect, grandma was financing her own gentrification. And we didn't ask for 10%. If you just gave 5% of the pension fund investment to black, they could hire a lot of our people and train our kids how to do finances right here in Wall Street. Are you open to that kind of situation?
No, I'm absolutely open to it. What we see in Kentucky right now is what we see across the rest of the country. We've got state legislators passing laws to try to make it harder to lift people up, that try to kick people while they're down, that try to prevent the private sector from embracing diversity if the private sector wants to. The Republican Party used to be the party of the private sector and said that government shouldn't be intruding. But now, if you think a DEI policy is good for your company, they're going to come after you. If you think an ESG policy is good for your company, they're going to come after you. My supermajority, not so supermajority in my legislature, recently passed a law on proxies that was opposed by the National Methodists that said we want to be able to invest our money in our retirement system in a way that fits our faith. And they wanted to make sure that if environmental issues or diversity issues were involved, that they couldn't do it. So it's a time that we have to push back, but yes, I want to make sure in the Commonwealth of Kentucky we use all our funds to lift people up.
Voting. Voting is clearly under attack in this administration. They have tried to do the redistricting and in some areas have been successful. We're waiting every day to see if the Supreme Court is going to take race out of the Voting Rights Act, which would totally eradicate the impact of that. Where do you stand on voting rights and on this erosion of the voting rights bill led by this president?
On my third day in office as Kentucky's governor, I signed a bill that restored the voting rights of 200,000 Kentuckians that can now participate in our great democracy. There was a gentleman who came at that signing that had lost his right to vote at 18 before he'd ever cast a ballot.
Wow.
He had twin 6-year-olds that he brought with him that day because they had never been able to see him to vote. He broke down that day. I handed him the pen I signed it with. 4 years later, he sent me a picture of having gone in and voted for me for re-election with that pen. I'll never forget that. I'm absolutely against anything that makes it harder to vote. Democracy ought to embrace making it easier to vote while making sure it's safe, but our elections are safe. Our elections are valid. And so you will see me veto a bill in Kentucky this session that makes it harder to vote. But let me go one step further. You've got a lot of great folks who have come through here. And in 2028, we will need a Democratic president. And one of the first things they should do is to sign an executive order that protects voting rights for the people of the United States of America.
As governor of Kentucky, you've had to deal with criminal justice reform. And as you know, this organization was involved, as others, with the Breonna Taylor case and other cases, George Floyd's family here and others. How do you, at one point, you have to protect and support law enforcement. We're not anti-law enforcement, but at the same time, not let law enforcement break the laws or abuse people. How do you see that nationally? Because it's hard to discuss criminal justice reform with criminals. We have a president that's a convicted criminal. No, he is. He's a convicted, I'm not being facetious, he's a convicted criminal. But how would you see the balance because I think that if the Democrats are going to be successful, they're going to have to be balanced. And I think that I'm not looking for anybody to say and do what I do, but I'm looking for them to be open to what we say so we can strike a balance that protects all in this country. How would you view criminal justice reform?
In Kentucky, we lost Breonna Taylor far too young. She should still be with us today, and we should be willing to look at anything and everything that led to her death to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. I was proud to stand with her mom, Tamika Palmer, as we signed Breonna's law, which limits no-knock warrants in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And we were able to bring together Democrats and Republicans. Most of the time, when you look at reform, it helps both people feel safer and be more confident in law enforcement, and most of the time it helps law enforcement too. I'm the first governor that required our Kentucky State Troopers get body cameras because we needed them. But what the organization has found out is it helps them. It helps them see when some training isn't being followed. It helps them to make sure that their state troopers are safer. If they're responding to a domestic situation, they can watch the footage, and if someone turns their back, they'd say, oh no, you can't do that in that situation. What we've seen is that we need all of our communities to have faith in law enforcement if we're going to have safe communities. But that also means law enforcement making the changes, making the effort to come together to make sure that everyone is safe. I think that public safety isn't Democrat or Republican. It's not left or right. It's something that every single American deserves, and we've got to keep working towards it. But that's what amazes me about this administration and the actions of organizations like ICE. So I was the top law enforcement official in Kentucky when I was Attorney General. And I have never seen a law enforcement organization, federal, state, or local, act like ICE. Their level of aggressiveness, their not knowing the law on how to enter someone's home, thinking they can do it with an administrative warrant. They can't. The fact that they have an American body count because of their actions, and those that oversee them immediately brand anyone who confronts them as a domestic terrorist and attacks that individual. You know, every single officer involved shooting in Kentucky, we do a thorough investigation of. Every single one's taken in front of a grand jury, even if it looks justified from the beginning. And the only way we can build confidence is to have the right type of training and to follow the right procedures. And the last thing I'd say is that training is really important. So when I became governor, we found out very early that our law enforcement had moved towards this warrior ethos training. And that was concerning. And when we looked inside of some of the materials, there was also some anti-Semitic material within them. So we decided that we would invite the Anti-Defamation League in. We'd make them a part. We'd ask them to review the materials because they might see some things that I can't. They might recognize some things that I can't. And so our goal is to make sure that we have everybody at that table so that we can get our law enforcement in the best position possible to make sure everybody's safe.
Let's go there to education. We are seeing a move around the country by this administration to eliminate black studies and eliminate other things like public education. I mean, they've just about shut down the Department of Education. What do you feel about that? How should the national government deal with the education, not only in diversity, but in terms of making public education more financed rather than exclusionary and unaffordable?
I am a 100% pro-public education governor. I believe that public education is the way we break cycles of poverty, and in my state, your public school is typically the only school you have an option to go to. The idea that so many are turning their backs on public education, that they're blaming public education when we have defunded it over time is concerning. In my state, I've been pushing for pre-K for all, for every single 4-year-old across the Commonwealth. Right now, half our students show up for kindergarten not ready. They don't have as many vocabulary words. They might not know their colors. I talked to one kindergarten teacher that had 5 kids that weren't potty trained. How is he or she going to teach that classroom in that way? So they're blaming public education when half the kids walk through the door not ready in their first day of public school. So let's stop defunding our public schools. Let's stop sending money to schools that have less regulation. And let's work with our public schools on innovation. Let's give them all the same tools. Let's make sure that every single child has true opportunity, which I think is a world-class education, which I think is accessible health care, and just making sure they have that real shot at life. I mean, my son is here with me today, and we can clap for him. He's here somewhere.
Where is he at?
And,
Okay.
and the idea that we were able to provide opportunities for him that other kids can't achieve is wrong. We've got to make sure that we've got the policies in place where no one is behind when they are 5 years old.
One of the things that, and you heard me say it in my speech this morning, that is very concerning to us is health care. Yeah. The fact that the Health Care Act has not been renewed, and it's not even being discussed, because we're dealing with a president that just, just cram things down every day. Yeah, and people don't even realize it until their premiums are now being doubled, in some cases triple.
And hospitals are about to close.
Hospitals are about to close, and he's flooding the zone with all kind of foolishness. How do you see the country having be able to move back toward health care, and how have you dealt with the needs of health care as governor of Kentucky?
So I mentioned Congress because they got to take the blame here too. This Republican Congress passed a continued tax cut for the wealthiest of Americans, but refused to pass a tax credit for people who struggle to afford health care. I believe health care is a basic human right. I believe Dr. King talked about it as one of the greatest inequalities. But look at what this administration is doing. Its cuts to Medicaid are going to gut urban and rural health care. In Kentucky, it threatens to close 35 rural hospitals. It'll fire 20,000 Kentuckians, and 200,000 people will lose their coverage. That doesn't just hurt health care and make you drive an hour and a half to see a doctor, which hurts productivity too. But every one of those rural hospitals is the largest payroll in their county. Wow. And so if they shut down, so does the local coffee shop, so does the local restaurant, maybe the bank, maybe the insurance agency. This is a punch in the face of rural America, and it is going to cause devastating consequences. We ought to be running against that big, ugly bill in 26 with everything we've got. Because affordability right now, it can be a little, it's what's the straw that breaks the camel's back in any area. It might be your auto insurance, it might be your mortgage, but I tell you what, it's the cost of health care for most people. And the idea that you could be a woman in Kentucky and have to drive an hour and a half to give birth, and that'll be everywhere, is wrong. And you know, it's going to hit the reddest areas of our country the hardest. But you know what? I'm still against it, because I believe when I say it's a universal human right, that every single American, regardless of their party, regardless of their beliefs, deserves to see a doctor when they're sick.
Let me talk politics and we'll let you go. The midterm elections and 28 presidential elections is critical, and it's going to have to take a strategy to win. And we cannot have a polarized politics, because it will play into Trump's hand and the Republicans' hand. I know that someone who's very friendly with you, who we have a very good relationship with, in fact, he and I kind of came along together, is Congressman Greg Meeks. Stand up, Greg.
There you are.
And Greg Meeks and I, before I started NAN, we were together, and he was here when we started this organization and has watched it build nationally as he's become a senior member of Congress, and speaks well of you, but says that he's looking for people that'll be balanced. I am tired of being the most progressive and lose, and not having to give up my principles to work with others, but keeping my principles, but making sure that we get in a position to enact, legislate, and be empowered to put those principles into action. How have you been able, in a state that goes red sometimes, I don't even know if it's a purple state yet.
Sometimes.
Yeah, how have you been able to hold the positions you stated today, and our chapter leaders and others believe in you, in a red state? How have you been able to navigate being elected governor and reelected, and then transfer that advice to whoever is going to run for president?
Since you mentioned him, let me just say, Representative Meeks is an amazing American leader. We need to make sure he leads that important committee after November. Yeah, I'm probably the only guest that you've had up here that's won 3 straight elections in a Trump plus 31 state.
Wow.
Winning re-election in 2023 when immigration and inflation were tougher. And let me say, you've heard the bills I vetoed. I stand up for all of my convictions. But I do 3 things that I think has helped me out. First is I spend 80% of my time on things that matter to 100% of the American people. That idea that most people, when they get up in the morning, aren't thinking about the next political race. They're thinking about their job and whether they can afford the things they need. They're thinking about their next doctor's appointment. They're thinking about the roads and bridges they drive, the school they drop their kids off at, and whether they feel safe in their community. When we focus on those things, when we spend 80% of our time, we improve the life of all Americans without leaving anybody behind. The second thing I try to do, Reverend, is talk like a normal human being. You've seen how some of this speak has crept into the Democratic Party, and we sound like we're talking down to people. We've got to talk to people and not at them. You know, Kentucky got hit by that opioid epidemic as hard as anybody, but maybe West Virginia. I mean, we've all lost people we love and care about. I didn't lose one to substance use disorder. I lost them all to addiction. If we want to push back against this president and what he's doing to SNAP, trying to hold hungry people hostage for political gain, it can't be that they'll be food insecure. It's got to be that they'll go hungry. We've got to communicate to people in the values that they know and how they would talk to each other. But the last thing I try to do is to get beyond the what and to the why. You know, Democrats are real good on policy. I mean, we can do policy point 3, sub point 2, bullet point 4, I underneath. But we need to talk about our why. I mean, my why is my family and my faith. It's that idea that the golden rule says we're supposed to be good to each other, not bad to each other. The parable of the Good Samaritan says lift somebody up and not kick them while they're down. You know, the Bible says accept one another as Christ has accepted you. It doesn't have a comma unless in there. No exclusions and no asterisks. So I've taken positions that people would think you can't take in Kentucky. In 2023, I'm running for re-election, and they passed the most anti-LGBTQ plus bill that I had ever seen. They had $10 million ready for those nasty ads, and you know what I did? I vetoed the bill anyways, because it was the right thing to do. But when I did it, I explained my why. I said, the Bible teaches me that all children are children of God, and I don't want people picking on those kids. And so if the legislature was going to show them judgment, I was going to show them acceptance. If they were going to show them hate, I was going to show them love. You know, if the legislature was going to attack these kids, I wanted their governor to know that he cares about them. So I think the 8100 talk like a normal human being and actually share in this world that craves authenticity your why. I mean, who you're seeing here today is who I am. And I don't try to pretend to be anybody I'm not. I will tell you, I walked off the stage in 2023 having won re-election by 5 points in Kentucky, which is like winning by 30 anywhere else. And I looked at my wife and I said, whew, we'll never have to run a campaign again. And I'm not sure that's true today. I don't have any announcement, but I will not leave a broken country to my kids or anyone else's kids or grandkids. This is not the United States of America I grew up in. And I admit the United States of America hasn't been perfect and has actually been tough for a lot of people. But what we are seeing right now, a president that threatens to end another civilization, is anti-American. It's also anti-Christian.
So as we wrap this up, you've not made a decision, but you've not ruled out. This is not an announcement. It's not an announcement, but it is saying you haven't ruled anything out. 23 may not have been your last race.
It may not have been my last run. What I'm running this year is the Democratic Governors Association, and I hope everybody is watching governors' races. Yes, we've got to make Hakeem Jeffries the Speaker of the House and take back the House of Representatives. We got to make a run at the Senate, which I think we can, which you and I know should be structurally impossible, but for what this president is doing to this country. But if you care about 28, if you want to run in more than 5 states with zero margin of error, it's not about flipping the House seat in Des Moines, which we have to do. It's about flipping the governor's mansion in Iowa, in Ohio, in Georgia, in Nevada. It's about electing good people that not only are going to do what Republicans can't, which is govern well, but are going to help us win that presidency, whether it's me or somebody else in 2028. I will do everything I can to protect and restore and improve this country.
Well, Governor Reverend Malone, who's on our board, tells me that, and you've said it several times, that you're a practicing Christian, a prayerful man, and I'm sure you'll pray about whatever you decide. I want you to know, I every day I get up, wake up, and before I go to the gym to work out, I get on my knees and pray. I'm old school. I get on my knees. I pray right before I go to sleep. So I talk to God at least twice a day, and I'm going to ask him when he tells you what to do.
All right. Are you going to make a recommendation?
Am I going to make a recommendation? That's between me and God.
All right.
Governor Andy Beshear.
Thank you.
All right, everybody take your seat. I'm getting ready to take the offering. Don't go nowhere, Tracy Maitland. Shh, we didn't raise no money. And then I want to hear from our civil rights leaders measure the movement, but I did not raise our Saturday morning offering. And I'm taking 2 sides so you can get ready, because I got one speaker before I let the offering in, is that you that will give today and you that want to pledge to help the building. We've got to pay off our bank mortgage that we own. And already we've had scores of people say they're going to give $500 or more or pledge that. But let me, before we raise the offering, before we raise the offering, I'll give you time to dig in your pockets. A man that has worked with NAN since its inception, a man that has been a model to our community, and a man that has been a friend to me down through the years. And he broke his schedule to be with us today. And I want us to hear from our beloved friend and brother, the United States Senator from the state of New Jersey, Senator Cory Booker.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. All right, I am pleased to be here. Reverend Al changed my schedule when he tells me I need to come. I wanted to come. This is home to me. I am home with the folk here, and I want to bring the attention back from the stage to this room, because we know the truth of NAN. It was founded by the Rev 35 years ago, and it was founded with this mission, that we are the heroes that we need. We are the leaders that we're looking for. He founded it in the tradition of Martin Luther King, that the arc can bend, but we got to bend it. He founded it in the tradition of Jesse Jackson, that we are looking for that pot of gold, but we need a rainbow coalition to get there. We are here under the understanding that our community has not gotten to where it is because of who was in office. It has always gotten where it is because of what Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. And so I want to tell you about NAN's experience in my life. My Reverend Pastor Jefferson from Metropolitan Baptist Church is on the board of NAN and was New Jersey's leader. I know y'all cross the river. It's a great place called New Jersey. And I want to tell you that when NAN finds itself in a moment of moral urgency, this organization turns anger into action, outrage into outworking. It mobilizes and organizes. I want to tell you a true story about this terrible storm that hit New York and New Jersey called Hurricane Sandy. And NAN was organizing even then, distributing food and clothing and sanitary needs all throughout the region. And I was mayor of the city of Newark, leaning on Rev and his advice, and we became, in our church community, the coalition that was helping people now. We didn't wait for FEMA, we did the work together. And so I'm mayor of the city, and I'm driving along in my SUV as the storm is coming in. One more sweep of the city, and the SUV is shaking like a leaf in the wind, and the two officers driving me, trying to see through the windshield that was being punished with rain. We're on this long stretch of road in the West Ward of the city, and I get this phone call that I believe begins with the stupidest question in America. And you all forgive me if I sound impertinent, but here was the question. The person said, "Hello, it's the White House operator. Will you hold for the President of the United States?" I'm like, who says no to that question? And I want you all to know, I miss Obama. I miss her husband too, but I really miss Obama. And I said to the woman, yes, I'll hold. And next thing you know, I hear my second favorite Obama, Barack Obama. He's calling me from the Oval Office, and I'm very touched by him. He knows the storm is hitting our region, and he's calling to check in on me and the people of the city of Newark. I hang up the phone with him, and the phone rings again as if these two people planned it. I had just gotten a call of grace and decency, and I answer the phone, and this time I recognize the voice. No operator. You all don't know who he is, but he was the governor of my state at the time, Chris Christie. Now listen, this is not a time for partisanship. It's a time for purpose. And he's doing the same thing. He's calling to check on me and the biggest city in the state. I hang up the phone with him, and I'm going up a hill. And at the top of the hill, I can see at the peak, I don't see anything through the wind and the rain and the dark, but I see a light swinging back and forth. And as we get closer, I see it's a man swinging a light. And I'm wondering what he's doing out there. And then I get a little closer, and behind him, I see all the trees had come falling down. And they pulled down all the light poles and pulled down all the wires. And we pulled up next to him. We were going to call the emergency vehicles, alert them to the situation. But I will tell you right now, when I pulled up, I rolled out my window, and I see it's an elderly man holding this big light in a yellow slicker, and I yell at him, "What are you doing out here?" And then this man looks at me like I just asked him the stupidest question in America. This man points over to the shattered wood and twisted wires and says, Mayor, I'm out here to make sure no one comes along and gets hurt. I had just talked to the President of the United States of America. I talked to the governor of my state. I'm the mayor of the largest city in my state, but I will never forget that the greatness I best saw exhibited that night in a savage storm, in dark of night, in wind and rain, was the man who stood on a hill holding up a light in the night so that other people won't get hurt. That is the story of who we are. That is the story of NAN. That's the story of how we got here. Voting rights in America did not happen because Strom Thurmond came to the Senate floor and said, "I've seen the light." We didn't get suffrage because a whole bunch of people on the Senate floor put their hands in and says, "Okay, fellas, right to vote on 3, 1, 2. No. Every movement in America, from Mary Church Terrell to Fred Shuttlesworth, has always happened because of groups like this that organized for it, mobilized for it, stood for it, and fought for it. You were on the top of the hill trying to guide this country forward over the resistance often in Washington. And so I'm here to tell you all, as we have folk on the stage, we have to stay focused on the now. Not future ambition, but present action. We have work to do when black housing, home ownership is worse than it was back in the 1960s. We have work to do when still black women are dying 3 times the rate of white women when they're giving birth. We have work to do when black unemployment rates are skyrocketing, and the man who was in the office right now and said, black people, what do you have to lose? We know now it's jobs. And so much more. But we have to understand that this is the moment for which we were created. I believe we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. But I also know that faith without works is dead. And this is one of those moments that I call to NAN now. This organization has made 35 years of progress, of perseverance, of power. But this next stretch is perhaps the most consequential that we have. And so let's turn and understand. We have ancestors whose blood, sweat, and tears got us here. We have seniors and elders in this room who've carried us. We have organizers who sustain us. We have young people in this room who must outdream us. But I want you to know I lift every voice I can, every time I can. We must, in a chorus of conviction, know our history. And I want to end with this. I've been talking a lot about our history because it's both inspirational and instructive. And I want to take you to a moment right after the Civil War broke out in the 1860s, and there was a ship invaluable in the Confederate Army called the Planter that had a flat bottom to it, and it carried munitions up and down. It was a fearsome ship, and the Union Army had pulled their boats back because at shallow water they couldn't navigate. They'd put a blockade on South Carolina. Well, on that ship there was a man named Robert Smalls. He was enslaved. You all know who I'm talking about. He was enslaved. But he knew it is better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than have an opportunity and not be prepared. And so he studied that captain, how he navigated the ship, how he did the signals to the ports, everything about him. And one night, all of the white people on that boat, the captain and others, left the boat and left the slaves there, and that was his opportunity. He gathered the families of the enslaved onto the boat, into the hull. He put on the captain's jacket and pulled his straw hat down. And in the middle of the night, he took that boat out and now sailed down the coast. Every fortification he went to, he did the signals perfectly. They looked through the darkness, saw the captain's jacket and hat, and they let him on by. But then he gets to Fort Sumter, the big fort with the mighty cannons. He does the signals, and the signals are accepted. But instead of going by, he turns his ship and makes a beeline for the Union lines. And before they realize what happened, he's out of cannon range. But now he's got a bigger problem because he's a Confederate ship steaming toward the Union lines, and the Union ships are now preparing to fire on him. The captain of the Onward, leading that blockade, is loading cannons, getting ready to fire at a charging Confederate ship. So he pulls down the Confederate flag. Robert Smalls throws up a sheet, and at the last second, the Union line did not fire on him. Now picture this moment if you can. The ship coming out of the dark, pulling up a side. All the people on the Onward run to the side to say, who is this that has stolen this ship and is surrendering to us? And suddenly those men see a ship full of black men. And Robert Smalls walks on over with this ship full of Confederate munitions, this valuable ship, and he walks to the side of the ship. The captain of the Onward is staring at him confused, and he looks at him and then looks up at the American flag. And Robert Smalls says, can I have one of those for my ship, please? And his wife comes out of the hull of the ship holding their daughter and holds that child up to the American flag and says to the daughter, that flag right there, that flag will do you some good. My fellow Americans, from Crispus Attucks to Barack Obama, black people have been a part of this nation. We've redeemed the soul of our country time and time again. From labor rights to union rights to suffrage rights, we have fought in every major battle, and it wasn't who was president of the United States. Lincoln did not free the slaves. We freed the slaves. It is our power that has made this nation who it is. And now we must stand up like Langston Hughes said, America never was America to me, but I swear this oath, America will be. We must be like the poet who said America has got a dream with its back against the wall. To save the dream for one, we must save the dream for all. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, land where our mothers and fathers died, land of Harriet Tubman's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. We are our salvation. We are our freedom. Let freedom ring. We will mobilize and organize. Let freedom ring. We will stand to our feet, and with the conviction of our chorus of ancestors, we say again, let freedom ring. This is our nation under God, one nation, and we shall be free. Thank you.
Reverend Cory Booker. Wait a minute, Senator, let's do a selfie.
All right, we're going to do a rare video selfie. So we're going to say like we're here alone, and then we're going to turn around, and you all got to make a lot of noise. You got to be as loud as New Jerseyans, okay? Okay, New Yorkers or Norgers. All right, hold on one second. Rev, we are at the 35th anniversary of NAN. And we're not alone, one of the biggest turnouts ever.
Absolutely.
Thank you for
We're not by ourselves.
We are not by ourselves. Who we got with us? Who we got with us, Rev?
Well, let's show them.
All right. 35 years, still going strong. Organize, mobilize, stand up. Thank you, Rev.
Cory Booker, give him a hand. All right. Shh. I'm going to bring our national leaders to the stage. All right, but we're going to raise our offering first. Somebody said Central Ward. All right. Shh. I want everybody to give to the best of their ability. I didn't raise our regular offering this morning, and y'all know we got a lot of bills at the hotel here. I don't want them having 911 when I check out. I want everybody to give to the best of your ability. Many of you come from around the country, and y'all did not come to New York broke. Don't tell me that y'all ain't got no money. Y'all come here buying all this stuff up and down Times Square. How we do? Y'all are holding. All right, who's ever helping to hold? I need first, I got a lot of people here from our different chapters, and I know some of them have seen Reverend Toon, but I need a lot of you from around the country. Don't embarrass me. We're going to raise a lot of money and pledges on the building. Y'all know I've been talking all 35 years. Reverend Jackson was my, stand over there, act like you in church. We raising an offering. Reverend Jackson was my mentor, and I would always say I don't want to be ashamed in front of him raising money. So I look out here now, Jesse Jr. is in the house. Stand up, Jesse Jackson Jr. So don't shame me in front of Jesse Jackson Jr. I need about 25 people that can give a